Hey everybody, and welcome back. Alright, well, I managed to slip out for an hour, so we're going to have a little look at things and start next week's video off. This is Saturday morning. I wasn't expecting to be out now because I'm going to my vintage trials do tonight, but this is just, sort of weighing on my mind. Alright, so all I've done is taken the sump guard off. This is our introduction, isn't it? Nothing's happened. Been busy for the last couple of days, so let's get on. So what I'm going to do, from when you were last saw, is I put that back in so we know it's getting to there. I'm going to take out this filter under here. So let me move you around a little bit so you can see more of what's going on, and we will get started. Alright, let's see what happens when we take this out. Well, there's oil in the sump, so we know it's going right through the big end, so that's good. So starting it up for those couple of minutes wouldn't do any damage to it. Okay, so let me put that back. Okay, I suppose the next thing I'm going to have to do is take the end off here. I'll take the end off here, and then we'll see what it's like in here, but also I'll be able to blow through. I've disconnected, hang on. That compressor's timing is perfect, isn't it? Yeah, you can't see it all that well, but I've disconnected the rocker line there, so I'll bring the air line in, because it's a long one, out of the paint room, because that's got a pressure regulator on it. Turn it down to low pressure, and we'll blow through from here up to there and see if there's a blockage. Right, so I've taken the return pump off, and well, two things. One, basically don't see any oil at all, but what I'm pleased to see is this is the end that wasn't pitted. So my worry that the pitting was such that it wasn't allowing the pump to build the pressure up is not a concern, because the other end was the one with the pitting, and as we saw, that's pumping fine. So it looks as if there's no oil getting through to there. So let me go and get the airline and see what we can see. So I have the airline, it's down, I've turned it right down to 30 pound. So I'm going to put this on here. Well, you can't see, I've put it on where this comes up to go to the rocker feed. So let's see if anything comes out. Alright, that is fine. Let's take this one off the bottom again and blow through this hole, which should come out of the bottom. If it doesn't, we know where our problem is. Getting your way a little bit here, excuse me. that one is clear as well, so why are we not getting any oil up to there? Let me think about this. Right, well, you see that oil there. While the pump was out, actually I've just put the pump back in, but while the pump was out, I took the crankcase breather off the other side and just put the airline on that to pressurize the crankcase, and that oil came shooting out of the feed side to the return pump. So what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to put the pump and everything back together again, and I'm literally going to wet sump it. I can get into the cases through that breather on the other side. Hang on, I'll show you. See, there's the breather there. It's actually this thing which has two little steel washers in that lift and then go back. So this was one of their first ideas. Crankcase pressure pushes them off their seats, and then it goes in that hole and out, and then when the piston comes up, the suction, if you like, in the crankcases pulls these back onto their seats so the air doesn't get back in. So when the pistons are top dead center, this is a direct route into the crankcase. So I'm going to pump some oil in through there, and then when I put a load in so that I'm sure I can get suction for the return side of the pump, we'll load the bike and I'll kick away at it again. Right, I've just pumped a load more oil into the rockers. I've pumped a load of oil into the bottom of the crankcase. We know we're getting oil to the big end, so it's safe enough to start this. I've actually got the rocker feed right off at the bottom. Come on, compressor. There we go. Come on now, you started easier than this yesterday. There's a door nail now. Let's put the choke thing on. Absolutely nothing coming out of there. The only other thing I can think of I think you'd get some out of there, but there's this little pressure valve. I wonder if that's not working, so that instead of getting oil up to the rockers, it's just going straight back through to the tank. I'll have to let the exhaust cool down so I can take that off, and then we'll try that. Well, this gets curiouser and curiouser. I took the exhaust off, I took that out, it's fine, everything's good. Just check the oil level. Half the oil I put in is now in the crankcases. It just is not pumping at all. But when I pressurised the crankcases from the other side, oil came out of the feed hole that would go at the pump, and when I blew in the delivery hole, you saw it comes out here. So for some reason that pump just isn't pumping. And I did check actually when I had the pump out. I turned the engine over. Well, the eccentric pin on this end is on the same shaft as that, so if that pump is going round, that pump is going round, but it's not pumping anything. Have I got, which wouldn't surprise me with my luck throughout my life, have I got a defective pump? I don't have another one. Or do I? Let me go and look in the Enfield bits. Okay. Right, I found a pump. I only can find one, and guess what? It's feed pump. See the small plunger. But it's a pump, and I'm pretty sure that's they're identical otherwise, apart from the size of the plunger. So after lunch, we're going to put that one in and see if it feeds there. Okay. I couldn't wait, so I put that other pump in. I just run it for half a minute or so. I mean, it's got no distance to pump, nothing. So now I am going to have my lunch because I'm completely baffled. Alright, one last thing I'm going to try, which I can't see why it should be this. Hang on, let me move the back end of the bike over. But I've got it. Oh, I've got it strapped down tight. Alright, so what I'm going to do is kick this over, and you're going to watch that for me. As I say, that has to go around because this end goes around and it's all on one shaft. But stranger things have happened. Now I can't see it, so I'm going to switch you off, look at the video and then come back on. Right, well, I'm perplexed. I've got to give this a bit more thought. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a day working on the tank. But before we do that, let's go over this. I've also taken the back off here and poked something down in here to see if there was oil in here. There's some oil right down here, but it's not full of oil. So this is what's happening. We're definitely taking oil out of here. We're definitely pumping it to there, and because it's not coming back into here, it's definitely going into the crankcase. When I had this end off and the pump out, and I put some pressure on the crankcase, so I pressurized it, it pushed the oil through the filter and up out the hole here, which is the hole that goes to the feed side of the pump, of this return pump. When we put air on the outside of that pump, it blew out of here. So in other words, we know for a fact we're clear, we can get oil from out of the sump up to the pump, and we know we can get it from the delivery side of the pump up to here because we can blow air through. But we're not pumping anything. I mean, nothing at all. It's not only not going to the rockers, but it's not going through to the return to the tank because the tank level's just going down. We've tried it with our other pump. As I say, I'm hoping the holes are in exactly the same place. I think they are. I'll check that. But we just don't seem to be pumping anything, and I have no idea why. We know now the pump's going round. We just saw that. Totally confused. Alright, as I say, I'm going to take a break from this, and I am going to work on the tank. I'll put in a day on that. So I will come back when I've actually got something to show you, or if I have a brainwave or something like that. Alright, well I haven't started on the tank yet. I went and had a look in sort of some of the little boxes I got with all the Enfield stuff, because I remember there was a box there with basically scrap bits in, and when I looked I found the other pump, but some fool, probably while it was in the scrap box, had actually drilled a hole through the middle of it, right through and out the other side. So I thought, well, it's scrap. I bronzed up both sides, milled it and faced that, and what's the word, did that with it. And then this is a 3/8 hole, so I got it all lined up in the mill, and I ran it, because of course the bronze went through into the inside, and I ran a 3/8 end mill through it. So it's not the tightest of fits, but if this one just manages to move some oil, then we know it's definitely the pump, because we know these holes are going to line up correctly. Alright, so let me fit it and we'll see what happens. Well, that didn't do any good either. The only thing I noticed actually was that it seemed to be more spring pressure on this, so I don't know whether with this pump on this is deeper or what have you, but no. So anyway, still didn't get anything out of here, so I don't know what it is. Before I get any comments about the two idler gears, even if they do have anything to do with the return, which Hitchcock said it didn't, they come after this. So it's got a pump up here and it's got a pump that way. Well, supposedly they work because you pump the oil up to here and it all drains down and gets back into the oil tank that way. So that has nothing to do with this side of it. If it was pumping to here but it wasn't going back into the tank, I might think there's something about it. But no, completely and utterly baffled. I might give Hitchcock's a call in the morning. This is such, it's a sort of awkward system, but it's such a simple one, you know. Oil comes in through the bottom here, goes out through the top there, and we're done. Alright, see you later. It's me again, I just can't give up on this. Alright, what you're doing now is you're looking down at, that is where the rocker, this is it, the rocker pipe goes on. I just had a thought. So look, I put some oil in there. Right. Now watch when I turn the engine over. This is just by hand as well. Oh, come on. See that? That pump is working. And that's the old pump that's in there. I've just been looking at the instructions and it talks about not just filling the oil filter but putting the pumps together on the bench and filling the oil pumps up with oil. I didn't do that with the other one. Could it be this? But maybe it's not primed. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to have to knock off now. It's driving me mad. Alright, get ready for this. You watch it won't start now. How about that? Alright, so what did I do? Well, although I spent most of my working life overseeing the loading of deep sea tankers, I did spend about 8 years working in a chemical tank farm, so I have hundreds and hundreds of hours of working with pumps of all sorts of descriptions and pumping everything from refrigerated gases to thick fuel oils. So I thought, come on Michael, work this out. And I decided it has to be, particularly that last little bit where we put some oil in there and we got pressure out of the pump to blow air through it. I thought it's just got to be a case of priming this pump. So I read through the manual, and the manual, I think I mentioned this, tells you to build up this timing chest on the bench, fill the oil filter and fill each pump compartment and then put the ends on. You can't see what I'm talking about, hang on. Let me move you back a bit. Alright, so as I was saying, fill these end compartments, standing on its end, fill and put the pump. So I thought, okay, we can do that. But before we do that, let me just try something else. So I put the pump back in, the new one. Put this on to the crankcase breather. I took the discs out. The discs, actually, I discovered aren't steel. They're like a fibre material. But anyway, I left this slightly loose. Put about 20, maybe 30 pound of air pressure on that. And when this started to flood out of here, bolted it all up, gave it a little more blow, and funnily enough, there must be just enough pressure on that to hold the pump off its seat, because I got oil out of here. So I thought, right, now it's primed right through. Sure enough, when I kicked it over, just kicking it over, not even starting it, I started to get oil out of there. So connected everything up, you saw me just start it, and it works. So that's all it was, and I should really, as I say, I have enough experience with all kinds of pumps. I should have realised that that's what it was. But anyway, so now we know the lubrication system works perfectly. I can do the last, put the chain case out the cover on, put oil in the gearbox, all that sort of stuff. Put the discs back in this breather. So there you go. So happy ending to that. Michael doesn't have to have a nervous breakdown. I started thinking, oh, the two filters, the one that goes up here and the one that goes up there, does one of them have a check valve in it? So I looked in the parts book. No, it just lists the same part for both of them. The only check valve is this one here. And then I thought, have I missed something inside the cases? You know, like I think it was the C15 has a thing built in with a little cover on it and everything inside the cases, which would have meant complete engine strip. But, you know, I have the other cases, looked at them, no, there's nothing goes inside there. So that's all it could possibly be. I think the reason we don't have a problem with this one is because the oil level is right up here. So I'd filled it up with oil like the day before. I think that just naturally, with gravity, leveled out and filled the pump, but of course this side it didn't. So for next time, for anybody else with one of these, this is so much isn't a problem, but that side, fill it up with oil so it'll prime and suck some oil up. Okay, you can go off for a couple of days and do stuff, because I'm going to be tapping on the tank, and then I'll bring you back when I've got something to show you. Right, well, so I've got the back end about right. You can see there's a few little, needs some more planishing, but that is really boring. So I can only do so much at a time, and then I think, oh, I'm sick of this. Now, I've got to cut this to make it exactly right, but that all fits on nicely. So, this is my template for there. That goes round and up there like that. Now, I only just have enough 3003 to do this, so I don't want to make a piece and find it's wrong. So what I've done is I have cut a piece of 6061, and this will do two things. So I'm going to anneal it. It'll do two things for me. One, it'll show me whether this template is close. Where are we? That way. And the other thing is, if I can make it by whatever way I do it, in other words, if I batter this side and get it round and it all works, then I'll know that, okay, I'll cut a piece out of the 3003 this size and I'll batter it whatever way it was that worked with this one. So that way I won't waste a piece of the more, well, I don't think it's any more expensive, but I just simply would have to order it, so that would cost me shipping. All right, so let me anneal this and start to form it, and then I'll bring it back. Right, well, I'm learning less is more. I started out with my sheet, you can see the dimples, and I battered it, and I found exactly the same as with here. Get it right there was miles out here. Bent it to come here, and suddenly it was right out there. So I flattened it out, which is why I used the piece of 6061 rather, so I could mess it about. And then I did this curve first, just left it flat, did that curve, and then started to bring it in just slightly on various formers. Voila, a little bit more here at the top. It's up to the thing. That is almost right. So what I'll do, and also you'll notice, where is it? Here. That actually, well, no, it's too big here. I did cut a piece off. Stay there, don't move. I cut two bits out. Cut one bit, well, I cut one bit, and then I cut another bit, and now it's about right. So we've done well today. I'm dropping stuff on the floor, you're right. Got the oiling done. I set to and put the chain case on and all those little bits, and now I'm finding that I can do this. I'll press on a little bit to get this exactly right, and then I'll use this to modify this template, and that's where the forks go. Right, see that there is the extra little bit I put in, so this is going to come right round to here. You can see at the bottom, look, see how it follows the curve? That's pretty damn clever. Alright, that's enough for today. And for once I'm not going home stomping up the drive cursing and swearing. Right, so well, we had our little trials function at the weekend, and I saw Dick and he gave me a piece of high density polyethylene, polypropylene, whatever it is. So we're going to make a piece about that long. It's going to fit in there. There, should fit it there. Let's put that on there just for a second. You can't see, but I'm just screwing it onto the bottom, which, as you know, always takes me a while. There we go. Let's see which is best for this. That way. That way. Well, let's make it and then we'll decide. So we're going to make it about, I don't know, 2 inches long, and then we're going to make a metal strap for it. We'll just use some 16th alloy that will go around it. So when I turn it, I'm going to turn it. It's going to be drilled 1/2 inch, big enough for, screw this off, big enough for this end to go through, and then the centre part of it, we'll turn it down a little bit so that when we put the strap round, this can't move in the strap. Alright, so I've drilled a 1/2 inch hole through it. Then what I'm going to do is use a chamfering tool you know, chamfered bit, whatever you want to call it, just to make a cone there, so that even though it's very slippery and what have you, rather than have the thing be up against an edge, the hose, if I make it sort of cone shaped in there, then it can move around a little bit. And then it's going to be cut off there. It's going to be 2 inches long, and from there to there, which is a 1/4 inch in, I'm just going to relieve it, as I say, so that the metal, the sheet alloy clamp that we make to go around it, so it's going to be a bit like a, what do they call them, a P-clamp that the Triumphs had. When we put the clamp on here, this won't be able to slide up and down in it. There'll be a shoulder at each end to hold it in place. So let me do that. And there we have our piece turned down in the middle, so I've got a nice shoulder at each end. So let me just use the cut off tool, cut this off, and then we'll tidy it up slightly by hand. Right, so there it is, as I say, with its shoulders. I've chamfered that end. Now I can't get that, I don't want to put that into the jaws of the chuck like that, because it doesn't, I could have done it. But anyway, what I've done is I've put a bit of tape on there. I'm just going to stick it in the vise, that's so we don't mar it up, and chamfer this end. Okay, so there's our piece. Back through it. Just screw that. Come on now, screw on the bottom. There you go. So now then, we'll put that either there or in there, and then that will keep that out of the way. That would be the easiest place to put it. I can put it there. If I put it on this side, then the bracket's going to have to sort of come up and go over, whereas that is in there a little bit, so it's just going to be gentler bend to get it over there. Now let me go and cut a piece of alloy. This is 1.5 inches between the shoulders, and then we'll put a couple of little holes in it and make it all look nice. So I've drilled all the holes while it was still flat, and there's just a mark, slightly scored mark there. That's where we're going to bend it, and then this part will be curled round the round polypropylene piece. Right, so we'll do it in our almost break. There we go. Now all I've got to do now is curl that. I'm actually bending it around a piece of 1 inch round. I've annealed this. What it needs to go around is actually only 7/8, but I don't have any 7/8, and I'm not going to turn down a perfectly good piece of 1 inch round just for this tiny thing. We can tighten it up a little bit. There's that going like that. Around here. Keep going. Okay. Go and see how that is. If need be, we can bend it some more. We'll try it. So that's going to go on there like that. So that needs to be brought in more. I'm going to do it more so it's tight on this, because then when I fasten it on there, it'll clamp it down and it'll open out very slightly. So let me go and do this a bit more. Okay, you can see now it's on there tight because it doesn't come off. So put these in. There's a few threads on that. And I actually got the holes in the right place, look, without having to egg them out or anything. And then I pulled that in. See, that's in there tight now. Very good. It's maybe a little chunky, but does the job. Keeps that from flapping around. Okay. One last little job. You remember I was annoyed about this bolt being in here. I'd meant to take it out. I thought, I don't know what I'll do with it. So I made a little plate. I did this on the other one actually, but took it off that bolt. So there's the engine breather now pointing at the chain, and this is well out of the way of the chain coming up. We're all right. Okay, now I'll press on with the tank some more. Well, slowly but surely it's coming along. That isn't a dent, that's it's more the way the light's shining on it. Anyway, obviously it needs planishing out, but there's that first seam. Touching here, we're actually virtually touching all the way around. That curves over the top, catches that. And a nice slope here. Everything's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is sort of planish this out and make sure it fits nicely. And then I'll fit the other one to match up. Alright, that's it for another day. Right, well, so there's that side on, and you can see there's that side on, welded up, welded along the top. Obviously a lot more little bumping and thinging to do, and but let's try it on the bike because I want to show you something. And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, and I know many of you are, there's a hint to the next project in this shot. So there it is on the bike. Now it's not exactly the way I planned it, because when I was doing this back half I trimmed a little bit too much off. This should actually be higher here and go more like that. So it's I mean, it still looks nice. By the time it's planished off, as you can see, it meets into there. Everything is good. Meets around the bottom. Still needs some final doing to get everything touching nicely for the welds and to get all these last little bits out. So I'll tell you what, it'd be a lot easier to paint these and just use a thick what's called a filler primer, and all those tiny little things would just fill and smooth out. But oh, by the way, I made the little bit to go in the top of there. See, the thing about that now is the tunnel is right underneath there. I don't know how easy this would be to fill. You see, it should be up here. So what I'm thinking of doing is making like a little piece round like that, which will just rise up slightly, go down, and the filler cap will be on that. I've welded this up and made it more or less finalised. So what I think I'll do is I will make a piece that stands on there and see what it looks like. And if it looks alright, then I'll mark the outline, we'll cut it out and weld it in. It'll just slope up slightly and curve down obviously, and all directions, and it'll just give this another ½ inch or so. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have to be putting the petrol in and just going trickle, 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 or it'll all splash back out, I think. Anyway, other than that, I'm quite pleased with that. This one, you know, I thought I made the Triumph one too wide, which I think I did. This one I wanted to make narrower, but I had those big rocket boxes to cover up, so I couldn't make it. I could have made it a little slimmer, maybe ½ inch each side, but I think that looks fine. Hang on. Okay, now the saddle, the base and the form they're using is 1.5 inches, which is to where my finger is. So as you can see, the saddle's going to come up to about there. So that'll be very nice. There'll be no gaps, front or back, just the way it looks. Now, I'm going to try and get this done this week. It's Thursday, coming up to lunchtime. I might be able to get out on Saturday, I don't know. But I've got to knock off now, because we've got to go and finalise our taxes. Here's a little bit of US-UK information for you. In the UK, we have a system called PAYE, pay as you earn. And basically, you fill a form in, can't remember what it was, a P something, when you start an employer, and you put down, you know, like you've got a mortgage and you've got 16 children and things like that. And they work out what your tax allowance should be, and then say, for instance, you earn £100 a week, and they work it out that you get £50 a week tax-free, and the rate is 10%, then you wouldn't pay anything on the first £50, you'd pay 10% on the remainder, so you'd pay £5, and they'd deduct it. So after that initial thing, you never saw anything to do with your taxes. The end of the year, if you were a bit over or a bit under, your actual payment would be adjusted. So, you know, if you worked at the same employer all your life, filled in one form in all your life, here it's the exact opposite. Although you can get tax deducted, it's sort of up to you, and at the end of each year you've got to fill in a tax form every year, and you either get money back, which some people look at as like, whoa, I'm going to buy this with my tax refund, which strikes me as odd because it's your money that you overpaid, or if you haven't paid enough, you have to pay them in a lump sum, I think. Alright, so there's the difference. Anyway, we've got to go and do our taxes, so it's got to be done by April the 5th, so we have an appointment today. Okay, so right, I'll come out on Saturday, even if it's just to say au revoir for the week. Right, so I've still got a lot of little bumping and stuff on this to do to get it to fit perfectly around the bottom, and then we'll weld it up, because all these seams are welded inside and outside. So a little bit of planishing, and then the DA sander and stuff. So what about this? Now if I have it there, which is about where I want it, as I say, the tunnel is very close underneath. So what I want to do is just lift it up, I think about ½ inch. So what I'm going to do, good, that's all, is make a piece a little bit better shape than that I was drawing, a bit cack-handed there, like that, which will be hang about, oh, I haven't even got a bit of cardboard handy, anyway, which will be like that. It might make it a little bit longer to make it look better, so that will be raised up. Come up a little, perhaps at the front, and then be level, so it'll be deeper at the back than it is at the front. And that's just going to put that up there. I think I can make it so it looks nice. So as I say, what I'm going to do, first of all, I'll make our usual template, just a paper one this time probably, slightly stiff card. And then we will cut out that shape a piece of, let's say 3/4 ply. 3/4 ply. I'm moving about, I know while I'm talking to you, but let's have a look. How tall is 3/4? So 3/4 is here, right? Let me turn this around so I can see it. So it would be about like that, sitting on there, 3/4 at the front, maybe 1/4 at the back in height, and sort of lozenge shaped, egg shaped. So we'll cut a piece 3/4 ply, make it that shape it round, and then we'll actually form it on that. So we'll cut that piece, and then we'll cut another piece that goes on the top. Cut our piece of alloy, bigger, anneal it, clamp it on. Actually what I can do is screw it, because this of course is going to have a hole in it eventually. So I can drill a hole through the piece of alloy I'm going to use, through the top bit of wood, screw it, clamp it together, and then form it over the edge till it forms this little platform on there. Then we put the platform on, we'll mark round the platform, cut this out, weld that in. We'll put a bunch of weld on this side so we can actually grind it and finish it off so that it sort of smooths into there. We won't have a piece there with a weld on it. It'll look as if it's been pressed into the top of the tank, and that'll just do away with my fear that it'll be difficult to fill this up without it splashing all over the place. Alright, so let me go and cut a piece of card. Right, so first thing was our little bit of cardboard. That's actually been cut smaller from the original one, because that's the piece we're going to make. See, that will go on there. See, I didn't want it to be too big, just a little rise in the middle for that. So then we have this piece which is going to go on there. Right, then we have that piece which is going to get screwed on there, and then when this is annealed we'll batter this down over this rounded edge. So let me go and anneal this. Alright, so there it is, screwed on. You see, we're going to form it round this one. That's just going to hold it down. I'll probably put it in the vise actually and hold it while I'm doing that, and we'll work our way around. Don't worry about it being rough. Don't forget all this is going to be shaped, and this actually folded over is going to go like that, almost to nothing from here. Okay, so let me go and put it in the vise, and I've got enough time to do a bit of hammering. Right, so I don't know if I'll be able to form this enough. It's a lot of 3/4 of an inch to curve it in not a very sort of wide piece. Need be, I'll put a couple of little slots in as I'm going along to take it up, and then we'll weld them up. But let's see what happens. You can see how well the annealing works. Right, now all I've got to do is keep working at that. As you can see, it's a lot to bend over. Actually I've given Dick his shrinking fork back. But anyway, I'll just batter on at it. I had to cut a couple of little slots in. The tucks were just huge, but what I'm going to do now to make it easier is this is the shape it's going to be. Right, so I'm going to cut that. That'll make it a lot, because you can see here there's virtually going to be no tuck. There's a great big one, but I don't actually need that, so all that will get cut off. And then these will get welded in. Then we'll put it back on the form, and I think I'll just be able to finish those off nicely. Right, so as you can see there, see, because that'll sit on like that. So that's coming nicely round. I'll weld these up and then I'll shape this properly, okay? Right, so that's all I've got time for this week. Actually, I was out this morning moving snow. We had a night of snow last night. Okay, but before we go, I have a little announcement to make. Alright, you don't have to worry that I'm going to announce that I'm retiring again or anything. What is that at my trial/ride day this year, I think I mentioned that my friend Chris Arnold, who you might have seen a couple of years ago, I guess, I did a little video and he came over and rode a couple of the sections and explained. It was like a training video because he's really good. He goes to modern trials and wins them on his TY175. Anyway, he rode this Triumph at my ride this year and loved it. Now, he's won all the classes in the local vintage group except prehistoric because he doesn't have a prehistoric bike. So I said to him, would he like to ride this in this year's series? And he said he would. So he actually said his ambition had always been to be a works development rider. So now I'm sponsoring him on this. He nearly is. So anyway, he's going to ride that. So I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to ride the standard Enfield in 3 of the 5 trials. The other 2 are too far away for me to go to. I don't like to drive too far nowadays. So then I still have the Enfield we're going to finish now, and I'll be building more trials bikes. And I thought, you know, why? It's a bit daft just having them sitting around doing nothing. So I thought, well, if I'm going to sponsor one rider, why don't I see if there's a couple of other people who would like to be sponsored on an older British bike? Because I don't see them going out to buy one themselves, but you know, if somebody comes up and says, here's a bike to ride. So as it happened, a friend of mine called Bob Howard, who will probably be watching this video, called me the other day, and he likes older bikes and stuff like that. So I said to him, and he's really good, would he like to ride the other Enfield in this year's series? And he said he would. So I thought, okay, that's the 3 of us riding together, and you know, as I say, there may be more to come towards the end of the year, next year, that sort of thing. So what I did was I thought to myself, what we need, I've got muck on it now, Team Britannia. So, oh, look at that. They not only get to ride a bike, they get a free t-shirt or 2. So that's what I'm going to do this year. We'll try and get some video, but of course if I'm riding I can't be doing the video, so we shall see. But anyway, that was my announcement. Team Britannia, 3 of us to start with, and then possibly going to grow. Okay? And funnily enough, as I mentioned, we had our little get together and I saw Chris, and that's when we sort of finalised him riding this. And he said he knows I have the Yambasaki, so he asked would it be possible for him to ride that. There's a great big vintage meeting in Ohio that has road race. It's at a road race track. There's road race trials, scrambles, they do all sorts of things. Chris is incredibly competitive. I mean, he really is. And he was riding this thing, I think the last couple of years, and he was saying if he'd been riding a motocross bike in the motocross part of it, I think it's like an Ironman thing, he would have won. So would I fancy letting him ride the Yambasaki? So I said yes, I would. So he'll be doing that as well. But anyway, that's the little announcement. That's all it was. See, nothing to worry about. So we're going to go 1 video past what I thought. I'm pretty sure I'll be all finished this next video. So until then, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.